This meeting hereby called to order. Mr. Secretary, please confirm that the definitive information statement and the notice of today's meeting were provided to the stockholders of record.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in accordance with the requirements of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the definitive information statement and notice of today's annual stockholders meeting were submitted to the PSE EDS, posted on the company's website, and published in both print and online format in at least 2 newspapers of general circulation at least 21 days before today's meeting. The agenda of today's meeting is currently shown on the screen.
Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum for the transaction of business?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Based on the certification of the corporation's stock transfer agent of the total 13,277,470,000 outstanding common shares and entitled to vote, at least 10,819,823,655 common shares, representing 81.49% of the corporation's outstanding common capital stock and entitled to vote, are present through remote communication or by proxy at today's annual meeting of the stockholders. A quorum therefore exists for the transaction of business. Mr. Chairman, I would also like to inform our shareholders that all the incumbent members of the board of directors are present today via remote communication from their respective locations. Agenda number 4, management report. Mr. Chairman, we will present later the various agenda items which were approved by the stockholders through proxy voting and voting in absentia. We will now proceed with the management report. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman and President, Mr. Isidro A. Consunji, will now render a report on the 2019 operations and current situation of the corporation.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of our Board of Directors, let me welcome you to our first virtual annual stockholders meeting of DMCI Holdings. We are adopting this format as a precautionary measure against the spread of COVID-19. These are exceptionally difficult times, and we should do what we can to keep each other safe. 25 years ago, we founded DMCI Holdings as a defensive move against the cyclical nature of construction. We also wanted to pursue opportunities where our engineering expertise and construction experience would resort to a strategic advantage. Our strategy served us well. We were able to enter the real estate, mining, and utility sectors. We also achieved growth and stability even with the challenges posed by the 1997 Asian financial crisis and the 2008 global financial crisis. Had we remained a purely construction business, these things would not have been possible. Ironically, a few days after marking our silver anniversary, the island of Luzon was placed on an enhanced community quarantine, or ECQ, because of COVID-19. All non-essential activities were suspended. Across the world, other countries imposed their own containment measures. Borders were closed, and most businesses were ordered to shut down. Amid these unprecedented disruptions, and for the third time in our company's history, we find ourselves in the middle of a historic crisis. I think it's important that you understand where our company stands and what we should expect in the near term. To this end, my report will focus on our group-wide response to the effects and risks of the COVID-19 pandemic. But before I do, let me first provide a quick summary of our consolidated financial results in 2019. Our net income dropped by 27% to 10.5 billion pesos because of weak gold prices, lower construction accomplishments, and impairment loss of our mining assets in Zambales. Excluding non-recurring losses, our core net income fell 14% to 12.4 billion pesos. These non-recurring losses mostly pertain to non-cash goodwill impairment charge of 1.6 billion pesos for 2014 acquisition of Zambales Diversified Metals Corporation and Zambales Chromite Mining Company. Market conditions and regulatory restrictions no longer support our original valuation of these companies, so the board decided to write off the goodwill associated with these investments. Moving on to the financial contributions of our businesses, DM Consulting Incorporated contributed 906 million pesos or 25% reduction from 2018. Although construction revenues increased during the reporting year, gross profit margin suffered due to lower variation orders and claims for projects nearing completion. Contributions from DMCI Homes dropped 4% to 3 billion pesos because of lower construction accomplishments and industry-wide labor shortage issue. Seminar Mining and Power Corporation saw its net income contributions decline 20% to 5.5 billion pesos, owing to the 22% drop in both average gold prices and power generation. The drop in power generation was due to the program shutdown and rehabilitation of its 600 megawatt power plant. DMCI Power contributed 611 million pesos, 31% higher than the prior year. This was primarily due to the retroactive adjustment on its non-fuel tariff for Saborlan Power Plant for the years 2017 and 2018. Higher electricity sales in Masbate and Palawan also accounted for the growth. Contributions from DMCI Mining jumped 56% to 182 million pesos, following an 82% increase in nickel shipment. However, including the non-cash goodwill impairment charge of 1.6 billion pesos for DMC and ZCMC, DMCI Mining sustained a net loss of 1.5 billion pesos in 2019. This impairment charge was determined based on the sharp decline in average selling price and estimated reserves of our nickel assets in Zambales. Earnings from Maynila had contracted by 4% to over 1.7 billion pesos due to higher amortization and depreciation expenses for its capital expenditure program and the deferment of its approved tariff increase. When the ECQ was imposed in mid-March, we did what we could to help the government contain the viral outbreak. All our non-essential employees worked from home, while we kept our key facilities running on skeletal workforce. Essential employees were provided free shuttle service or board and lodging to limit their exposure. We also took care of the workers stranded in our job site. In response to the government directive, we suspended construction work, marketing activities, and payment collections. We also spent over 1.3 billion pesos to support our employees and other stakeholders during the ECQ. Half of this amount went to salaries and prorated 13th-month pay for our employees. Nearly one-third was distributed to our laborers, utility workers, service providers, and consultants in the form of salaries, prorated 13-month pay, and other assistance. The rest of the amount was spent on donations and COVID-19 preventive measures in the workplace. Since May, we've been gradually returning to work while adopting a combination of precautionary measures. Some of these measures are now flashed on your screen. At the start of my report, I referred to this pandemic as the third historic crisis in our corporate history. It may very well be our worst. We expect weak demand and low selling prices to affect most of our businesses because of reduced economic activities, supply chain disruptions, job insecurity, lower overseas remittances, and marked slowdown in private sector-led investments. The MCI could show more resilience if supported by massive public spending and timely issuance of permits and right-of-way. Fortunately, we can count on our healthy balance sheet and low debt exposure to sustain us during this difficult time. We are debt-free in the parent level, which gives us flexibility and financial standing to tap credit facilities and funding if needed. Our operating companies have cash reserves and manageable debt levels. DMCI Homes and Semirara, which account for the bulk of our consolidated debt, have unused credit lines to tide them over. To preserve our cash resources, most of our companies are deferring part of their capital expenditures. Consolidated CAPEX will be streamlined by more than half to 19.4 billion pesos. Most of the reduction will come from DMCI Homes, which plans to slow down its land acquisitions this year. From 19 billion pesos, their land banking expenses will be limited to 4 billion pesos. We're also taking a number of steps to manage our operating expenses, as you can now see on your screen. These measures are subject to periodic review and may be revised to best respond to prevailing business conditions. Before I end my presentation, I would like to honor our COVID-19 frontliners, whose heroic service gives us reason to hope and stay positive. I would also like to thank our board, shareholders, employees, customers, business partners, and host communities for everything they have done to support our company. At this stage of the pandemic, we cannot predict how the business environment will evolve, but it will definitely take some time before our company can rebound to its pre-pandemic income and dividend payout levels. However, I would like to assure you that our board and management are fully committed to safeguarding the long-term value of our company. With your continued trust and confidence, I believe we can bravely face the future and weather this crisis. Thank you, and please keep safe. I hope to see you all in person next year.
Mr. Chairman, for better appreciation of the company's operations, the shareholders were given access to the definitive information statement, management report, annual report, and first quarter report. For better use of the time, we requested our shareholders to send their questions by email or prior to this meeting. We received 2 questions from the shareholders, and we have responded to them individually by email. Further, we shall also include these questions and answers in the minutes of today's meeting. 5, other agenda items. Mr. Chairman, shown on the screen is a summary of the tabulation of votes cast in absentia and by proxy in favor of the following items on the agenda. Number 1, approval of the minutes of the previous annual shareholders meeting. Number 2, management report. Number 3, ratification of acts of officers and directors. And number 4, appointment of external auditors.
Considering that at least a majority of standing capital stock voted in favor of the proposed resolutions, the same are deemed approved.
Agenda item number 6, election of directors. Mr. Chairman, for the election of directors, the corporation received a total of 7 nominees for regular directors and 2 nominees for independent directors, namely Isidro A. Consunji, number 2, Cesar A. Buenaventura, number 3, George A. Consunji, number 4, Herbert M. Consunji, number 5, Maria Edwina C. Laperal, number 6, Luz Consuelo A. Consunji, and number 7, Maria Cristina C. Lucianon. For independent directors, number 1, Honorio Reyes Lau, number 2, Antonio Jose U. Periquet.
Based on the tabulation of the votes cast in absentia and by proxy, the nominees received the number of votes cast opposite their respective names as shown in the screen. They are hereby elected as directors of the corporation for the current term.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 7 other matters.
Are there any other matters to be taken up?
There are no other matters listed on the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Since there are no other matters to be taken up, unless there are objections, this meeting is now adjourned. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending today's meeting.